Thank you all for a wonderful day's worth of discussion. I think, Nicholas, you deserve a special note of gratitude for A, assembling an outstanding panel for me to talk with, and B, inviting me back to a part of the world where we can still talk about decarbonization and DEI. I've kind of forgotten those words, frankly, so it's a treat to hear that they're still part of the conversation here in Europe, and very much looking forward to this. Gentlemen, we have, I've learned, as I say, never to stand between a CEO and his own company, and so perhaps you could introduce yourselves to the audience and your company. Please.
My name is Hisham Alnughaimish. I'm Bahri Oil President, and you can add the gas, just add it in the last 4 months. So we'll add the gas to the oil now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lars Barstad. I'm the CEO of Frontline. We're a pure tanker company. Have 80 ships on the water, trading both crude and we've got 18 LR2s, so also exposed to the product market.
Good afternoon. My name is Rindbo. I'm the CEO of Norden. Norden today operates around 400 vessels across project cargo, dry cargo, and product tankers.
Hello everyone. My name is Kosmatos. I'm TEN's Co-CFO. Tsakos Energy Navigation, one of the oldest publicly traded companies around since 1993. We have vessels in every single category, from the very large crude carriers down to the smaller handy-sized product tankers and everything in between. So looking forward to having an interesting tanker discussion.
What a panel, what a panel. Thank you all so much. Gentlemen, you saw earlier today a presentation by Martin Stoddard in which my takeaway was that he basically showed us 290 years of declining shipping rates and then a pretty good rates maybe in the last 10 years, maybe 5 or 10 years. So it's been a positive market environment. But you all have been driving exceptional performance in that environment. I'd like to hear, what is your secret sauce? What has made you excel in the market environment today? And Hisham?
In shipping, you need to be patient. First of all, market goes up, goes down. Take the opportunities of building your ships on the right spec to the customer's requirements, and always try to get the best rate in the market. I know the market sometimes will not help, but that's where you need to try to control your cost, and also try to pick up the right routes, let's say. And in our case, of course, dealing with or be responsible of all the CIF Saudi Aramco cargoes for VLCC, it's give us put a lot of pressure on us. We also manage another 2 big COAs with other 2 oil companies in the east. This is always put us under pressure. So we always try to maintain our ships and control our cost.
Hisham, if I could take it a bit further, is it the access to cargo that has been key to your strategy?
See, it's having the cargoes, okay, like being with Saudi Aramco, for example, okay, it's one of the biggest. But that's you need also to manage when the volumes go down. What you're going to do? Okay, when the market is good, when the volume is good, that's fantastic. But when the volume is down, that's where you have to try to fill the gap and try to get some other cargoes.
Understood. Lars.
Yeah, no. So I come from a platform with a shareholder that has one of his sayings is you need to pick your time in the cycle. I think what we in Frontline are most proud of is kind of starting to invest in this market in 2020 and increase that investment during 2021. 2021 was the worst tanker year on record almost, but continuing that voyage in order to have a substantial position in the shipping market with what hopefully looks to start to look very constructive. But there's also another thing, and this happened before my time, but also trying to turn towards efficiency. When energy prices started to move post 2002 on Chinese growth and so forth, one needed more efficient kits, not necessary for emissions, but basically to manage cost. And this turned Frontline into being kind of a normal average fleet-aged ship owner to be holding one of the most modern fleets in the market.
So Lars, you chose your timing well. Cycle timing was key. You built scale and you got your costs down. Was it operating costs, capital costs, or what aspect of cost were you particularly successful at?
We were actually most focused on the energy costs, so basically the fuel costs. Okay. But one fun fact, I sat in a presentation with Dr. Stopford back, it must be 5-6 years ago, and he had the same argument. I didn't have the ability to see him today, but shipping hasn't really changed. We do the same old thing. But I questioned that and said, when were you last kind of inside the shipping operation? Because, by way of digitalization, by way of using new tools, by way of weather routing, by way of, a lot of measures, shipping has actually evolved a little bit.
Thank you.
For Norden, it's been to add more flexibility into our business model by operating an asset-light fleet of 400 vessels of all sizes across project cargo, dry cargo, and product tankers. And that gives us the ability to constantly adjust our market exposure across these different segments in accordance with both, obviously, market opportunities, but also our customer demands. And even though it is an asset-light business as such, we do actually have purchase options. So that means that out of the 400 vessels, there are actually 100 vessels in our fleet where we have the opportunity to buy and own the vessels. So it gives us great upside in great markets, but actually very little obligation in bad years.
Asset-light can mean different things in different contexts. What does it mean specifically for Norden?
So I think it specifically means that, sort of by numbers, it means that out of the 400 vessels, we directly own 5%. Then we do leasing of another 15% of that fleet, where we have purchase options. So in round numbers, it's about 20% of the fleet that carries, some asset upside, but actually only 5% with a downside. And then you have 300 vessels which are chartered on shorter-term basis. And in the tanker space, we also run a pool. So these are ships where we don't have a lot of market exposure to.
And Jan, so just push a little bit further on this one. Do you also have long-term cargo, access to cargo that is part of that chartering strategy?
Yeah, so part of adjusting our exposure to the markets, we also use long-term cargo contracts, time charter contracts. So we run quite a large portfolio of cargo as well. We move 150 million tons a year of cargo. So customers are a big part of our business.
Yeah, they often are. Yes, understood. Harris.
Well, secret of our success, perhaps been boring. Been boring, meaning that when the company started as a public company with an Oslo listing back in 1993, it had 4 vessels in the water, and as I mentioned earlier, we have 82 pro forma fleet today, 61 in the water and 21 under construction. Been boring in the sense that we cater to the long-term needs of our clients, meaning we do not necessarily play the cyclicality of the market, which is what investors like for companies to do. There are many companies included on this panel that have done an excellent job in playing the market, but we're not there. This is not our operating model. And also, always, as I mentioned, catering to the long-term needs of our clients, meaning that we always need to have modern, high-spec vessels. And in order to have modern high-spec vessels, obviously you need to have the capital. You mentioned earlier access to cargoes. Yes, absolutely. But in order to have access to cargoes, you need to have access to ships. And in order to have access to ships, you need to have access to capital. And obviously, we have utilized the capital markets to raise capital in the various cyclical points that we felt it merited us investing into the sector, but also in taking advantage of the highs in order to divest some of our older vessels, raise capital, and reinvest that capital into new buildings or modern second-hand vessels. And also, another secret of our success, always having, to a detriment, being a public company, again, investors do not really appreciate it, having a very healthy cash reserves, probably more than we need, but we know it's a capital-intensive industry. We know when an opportunity comes, you need to be quick and pounce on that opportunity because somebody else might do it before you, or the banks or the capital markets might not be there to finance that potential acquisition. So we would rather, in a way, leave some dollars on the table in terms of market valuation, but have that ability to go and move quickly and take over that opportunity that we feel makes sense. And also, no pun intended, managing kind of a tight ship, the Greek old traditional way of managing vessels, safety without compromising on the safety of the crew and the ability of the vessel to be well maintained.
You've got a fairly large new building program on now, if I recall. Can you talk a little bit about that?
21 vessels. There were, most recently, you may have heard, if you were listening into our conference call of our results, we just ordered 3 VLCCs. We felt for a company of our size, we were a bit VL light, so we needed a little more exposure in that sector, even though we have 3 vessels currently operating and reaping the rewards of the market. But most importantly, the 9 vessels that we ordered to Transpetro Petrobras, shuttle tankers, that's another area that we have strengthened our presence over the last few years. The Brazilian market, we're probably the largest shuttle tanker operator in Brazil today, or if not the largest, one of the largest shuttle tanker operators. So that was an area that we felt we needed to further invest in. And the 9-vessel transaction to Petrobras on 15-year contracts, we felt it was a testament of our ability to run these high-end assets.
So you've got a bit of diversification going on, again, it's backed with long-term contracts in the case of the specialized
Yes, that's
tonnage.
part of being boring, because again, investors do not like us to diversify. They would rather do the diversification themselves. However, because we always follow the needs of our clients, by default, the fleet has gotten diversified. So yes, the more specialized sectors, like particularly the shuttle tankers, we view as, in a way, revenue stabilizers. So effectively, the returns we view as an annuity return, and we have the conventional fleet in a way to play the market and give us whatever we need in order to kind of grow the fleet and reward our shareholders with healthy dividends.
It's super helpful to hear about how you've been able to make such a success of your companies. Now, beginning to look forward a bit, what do you talk about with your board that is something that keeps them up at night? What are the black swans that maybe are coming in the future that you have a discussion about? And Harry, we'll just carry on with you since you did so well at the tail end.
Well, touch good. Everything seems to be going in the right direction in terms of global oil demand. The new building activity has been, even though it has edged up, it's still relatively contained, and in no way, it kind of big enough to destabilize the market. Black swans, I don't know. Perhaps all these tariffs getting out of control that could potentially lead to kind of a global recession that could impact oil demand. Ironically, many people view the end of the war in the Ukraine as a potential black swan. Actually, I don't think yes, the moment the war ends, I think share prices could face a lot of pressure because investors have associated the healthiness of the market due to events around the war, which yes, they assisted. However, they were not the catalyst for the market to enter such kind of solid territory. It was always a healthy market, low new buildings, scrapping is picking up, so the market fundamentals are still there for a healthy market. Now everything on top of that is additive, and I think the potential black swan on that front is not so much the ending of the war in the Ukraine, but perhaps a rapid regime change in Russia, which I do not see that happening anytime soon. So as long as the current regime stays put, I do not see any material impact in terms of sanctions and punitive measures against Russia. And all of that, in a way, will have a domino effect with events in the Middle East and the Houthis. So overall, the market, we expect the market to remain healthy, even if such elements would in a way normalize. But in the end of the day, anything that could tame global demand would probably be the biggest risk factor that could dissuade us in investing further.
Outbreak of peace, global recession, two key risk factors that I heard about, but otherwise a stable outlook. Jan, talk about what your board worries about.
Well, so black swans, I think, first of all, we used, in the old days, it was the elephant in the room. Now it's the black swans. So we're being a bit tough on the animals here. But for me, it comes a little bit back to the core of our business model of flexibility. I think that's just so important to have that in a world that is becoming less predictable. Black swans are obviously by definition very hard to predict. So I think trying to sort of pinpoint one single black swan event is very difficult. I think just be prepared for the unknown and have that flexibility is important. But in Norden we also have a very large dry bulk market, and dry bulk is 40% is China imports. So that's a very, very big portion of that market. It's smaller for tankers, but still it's a very significant economy now in the world. So clearly the whole U.S.-China tension is something that we're following very closely.
So you might add a slowdown in China in particular to be a risk factor, although not necessarily so much on the tanker side.
Yeah, I think the slowdown, I'm not so worried about a slowdown. This is more sort of a hard stop. The world sort of breaking into two blocks. So I think a slowdown is something that we have anticipated for some time. So that's not the issue. China is still growing at officially around something like 5%. That is still quite a decent growth rate for, especially now for an economy of that size. So that is not really what worries us too much. But it's more, a hard stop in China, for example.
Lars.
No, I think regretfully black swans have become pretty commonplace in shipping. There's quite a few things that have been thrown upon us over the last years. Right now my board is more worried, do we have enough ships in the spot market? But I guess that's kind of a pleasant worry rather than anything else. But just to build on China, China is of course a big driver to our markets on oil as well. India has become an increasingly growing oil consumer. I think if you rewind back to 2019, most of the intelligent people in the world thought we were at peak oil demand. That has been proven not to be true. There's been talk about energy transition and alternative energy sources in the previous panels here. But I think the thing that, with regards to us transporting oil, the cake is growing so quickly that, renewables can't cater to it. We heard that China kind of used, coal generated electricity was massive this summer.
Right.
And, just a fun fact, since we are in Britain, just for computing China surpassed Britain's electricity consumption this year, according to numbers. So I think kind of, in this evolving world, oil has its place. And even though we have headwind, particularly in China, I don't see that as a massive threat going, long term.
Lars, in other settings, you've raised a concern about the dark fleet and the condition of the dark fleet. We heard earlier today from the Secretary General that the IMO, and perhaps I'm oversimplifying, is kind of powerless to do anything about the dark fleet. Is that a more? Do you see a solution to that problem coming?
No, I think it will solve itself eventually, but regretfully, probably by way of natural disasters, which is not the way we should solve problems. I think in the previous panel it was pointed to the fact that countries that are members of the IMO actually are supposed to adhere to certain rules. Quite a few flag states that are listed as so-called IMO members harbor these vessels. So I think kind of, IMO could be much kind of more outspoken about this. Had they spent as much time on the dark fleet as they do on net zero, then I think we would have gotten somewhere. So I think kind of it's about focus, and it's about daring to say kind of the elephant in the room, actually.
Thank you. Hisham.
Being an area where we have a lot of problems, wars every other year or two, closing off the Red Sea, be responsible to deliver, to our refineries, at least, I'm talking in Saudi Arabia, being responsible of Saudi Arabia oil. We also or handling more than 100 ships. All these things, really makes you cannot sleep. Okay. For the last 20 years, I've been handling all the Saudi programs, and never failed in one cargo without ship. And this is our KPI since 20 years, and this is a big responsibility. Knowing, from day one until now, thanks God, we didn't fail. So this is put you under pressure. Okay. Second, be sure that your fleet is updated. Keep renewing. We are holding for the VLCC around 50 ships today. We are the second. Okay. So it's a big responsibility. Pushing the board about we need to renew. This is something, it's not an easy job. The shipyards already filled. There is prices is high, and I can understand when it comes when you start talking about IRR and this and that, but also we have a responsibility. We are the maritime champ of Saudi Arabia, and we depend on our friends, from the spot market sometimes, and they are, they show the, they're really responsible when we came to them, and they are helping. And we always, we work as an owner and as a charterer too. So these two things is really, and the most important now is with the regulations. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Every day, every day. I remember in 2019, I think, when they were talking about scrubber. Okay, and I said, okay, now we take it from the air, we put it in the sea. Is this the solution? Now it's okay. We are talking now about the LNG. Is this the right one? So all these things, it's. If I want to build a ship today, should I go and do LNG fuel or not? Tomorrow somebody else will come with something else. We are, as an owner, we invest, and we have no problem to invest. But give me the right decision. Not every day, you wake up in the morning and then say, oh, we're going to do that. That's the big headache for any owner.
Hisham, I see in you that kind of intensity that I see actually in everyone else in the panel. I think a ship owner lives with the day-to-day intensity of the decisions, which we love, but is tough. How have you built your organization? Have you been able to recruit the people around you that you need to maintain that at an organizational level?
You mean within the company, okay, they understand this, okay, and there is a responsibility. And we're trying as much as we can, to, at least be in the safe side and try to just do the minimum, until we survive. Regarding this, okay.
The recruiting the people and building the team, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and you learn constantly about how to do it.
I will tell you one thing. This is something that, and maybe it's a very, very strange number, for everybody, that we have 50% of our, people in oil, for example, young Saudis. Mm-hmm. I remember Mr. John Fredrickson, did a visit, to our office. It was one of the best of visits, during my life, It was like 3 months ago. And then he took a tour, and then he went to my office and I said, Hisham, is this your team? I say, yes. He said, all these young Saudis? I say, yes. That's something that is, he was very happy to see that. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I take this personal. I hired these young people to, just fresh graduate, and I watched them. I watched them very closely, even their weight. Okay. I swear to God. If I see somebody gain weight, I say, what you've been doing, at night, So I will be sure, that they did. I don't give them all these training courses or something. No, I concentrate on, on working, on their desk, I put mentors on them. We try as much as we can. And by the way, this is what we are missing right now, not just in our company, on the whole shipping community. We are missing shipping people. All the expertise, starting leaving, and think we need to work on the young, to be, this is not any job. You have to love it.
Right. There was a comment earlier today about how important it is to bring in a larger audience to meetings like this. Maybe the charterers, maybe the consumers, maybe the politicians. So let's talk about charterers for a moment, and in the context of the decisions that are going to be made in October. How are your customers talking to you about decarbonization? And do they pay a little extra if you offer a cleaner ship in terms of less CO2 emissions? Lars?
Yeah, not at all.
Not at all.
No.
And that answer, by the way, is completely consistent. I keep hoping for something else, but I haven't heard it yet.
But this is one of the problems with this new regulation that's going to come to the vote, is that, of course, IMO has to cater for a large industry, of which tankers is kind of just a part of it. But in our kind of market, our customers, it's about price. The cheapest way from A to B. The lowest price in dollar per barrel. So we're not really discussing this kind of closely with our clients. There can be, of course, the occasion, and I have to be fair, that certain oil majors are willing to pay for a dual fuel LNG, but then they tend to have a vested interest in LNG becoming a fuel. So it's but that's the challenge that we have in all this, is that with regards to EU ETS, Fuel EU, we can't or we don't manage to actually pass on the cost. But I have to say though, Fuel EU has actually helped marginally. But we don't have clients that they're price sensitive, not carbon sensitive.
Jan.
Yeah, so I think we do have conversations with our customers, and there is interest. But I agree, as soon as it comes to the pricing, that interest sort of tends to drop a bit. So there's no question in my mind that this is why, the IMO regulations that hopefully are coming, that is what we need to close that gap. So in Norden, we've used biofuel sort of as a way to at least offer green freight, to our clients. So we can actually offer that today on our existing vessels by using biofuel, not just as drop-in, but actually 100% biofuel. And there is some interest, and there are actually examples, also to be fair, of customers sharing some of that cost. So it is happening, and of course, ultimately, speaking to maybe end users, which could be both in the energy space, but also just for materials. At the end of the day, if you want to produce stuff that is green, and you look at your supply chain, you then need a green supply chain as well. So I think eventually it will come, but I also think we need this push from the regulation. So I think it's coming, and with the IMO trajectory, those conversations will only pick up between now and 2028.
I know Norden has been active in the carbon markets in addition to the shipping markets, and we might have a chance to hear more about that. But Harry and then Hisham.
Well, I'll have to agree with Lars. I mean, it's not really top of the agenda when we're discussing long-term contracts, especially in our case, since we're looking at new buildings on long-term contracts. Ironically, everybody talks about decarbonization and alternative fuels and what have you. Of the 21 vessels currently on order, not a single one of them will have been kind of forced by our charterers that in most cases have pre-employed, if you like, the vessel to have an alternative kind of fuel, to be dual fuel, whatever, LNG, whatever else. They are price sensitive. Obviously, they want to, as Lars said, have the most competitive price to carry, to use your vessel. And in our case, they need the security that you're going to be around, at least in our case, for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and carry the cargo safely. If with any kind of vessel, modern vessel, of course. So as long as they feel comfortable in your operational abilities and capabilities, then I think you're kind of good to go. And as long as the vessel complies with the basic high-level parameters that in a way they like to see you have, not imposing you, but you need to tick certain boxes. As long as you tick those kind of quality boxes, and in our case, most of our vessels are built in the top yards in Korea, Japan, then there is no issue. We do not go into the granular detail on alternative fuels and different designs. And we as a company, we're not there to experiment. So unless that particular kind of prototype, if you like, has been tested over a period of time, over certain trading routes, certain weather patterns, we will not be the guinea pigs. We would let others that have this kind of appetite, but we've been conservative, boring. We would rather go with something kind of run-of-the-mill vessel. So, in our case, they know that we can carry, the cargo from A to B for the next 5, 10, 50 years safely. So that's all it boils down to.
Hisham, I promised to take 5 minutes and ask fun questions. No, and so you've got 57 seconds to talk about what your charterers pay for.
Okay, there are a few concerns. I mean, they really look at it. But the most important, why only owners business? I think it's not only owners, it's also customers. Mm-hmm. Everything dumped on the owners. It's not right. Okay, I think it has to be give and take. We'll be happy to invest and do whatever it's required. But also, charterers has to participate.
I think it's such an important message about shipping that we are taking initiatives to decarbonize and taking them in the face of not a great interest on the part of many charterers, is what you hear. But each one of us, each one of these leading owners, are setting examples for the industry. The Poseidon Principles on the finance side is really a leading activity. It's not easy to do these things unless you get the commercial recognition. And so all of the efforts that you have done really do stand out in my mind, even though they haven't yet gotten the support they need.
But if I can just, and I was reminded about this in at a conference in Cyprus about a year ago. Of course, we talk about shipping. IMO talk about shipping. But if you put this in a global perspective, since 2008, I think global carbon emissions have increased by 25-30% somewhat. But actually, if you look at shipping, we've been able to improve carbon intensity by the same percentage. We don't emit a lot more since 2008. I'm saying 2008 due to the IMO trajectory. So it feels like for this regulation, feasibility studies were done probably for 2 decades before we did IMO 2020. Okay, so how is this going to work then? And so we're all for decreasing our carbon footprint, and Frontline should actually be quite happy with this because we're well positioned with modern tonnage and so forth. But I think maybe one should rethink it a little bit, because I think the targets set here are probably a little bit too aggressive, and then you have a fund that's going to be created, which we have no idea what's going to be used for, really. I think the biggest problem we have here is that, particularly from the tanker owners, is that, for the energy transition industrial complex, these guys have all the time in the world to talk about how we can regulate this business, But we as owners, we don't spend all that money walking around in conferences and trying to affect people. So I think a lot of particularly tanker owners have been a little bit caught off guard here, what happened back in May or June. That would be my kind of general opinion.
I think if I may interject, and apologies for the interruption, and perhaps that could be a next panel topic for Capital Link. We're talking about how sensitive or potentially sensitive all the oil majors are in terms of decarbonization, the environment, so on and so forth. And then, with the same breath, we're talking about potentially taking back some of the sanctioned vessels once the war ends. So it's kind of something doesn't quite match. So perhaps that could be a subject of debate. Will those oil majors that are so sensitive in terms of environmental issues take back all those contaminated, if you like, vessels that are doing the sanctioned cargoes?
I'm going to take the last 2 minutes, and I want you to know the discipline of this crowd. If we were in Oslo, the first question would have been, hey, Lars, $90,000 a day? Whoa.